I can still remember the exact second everything in my life flipped upside down. I was standing in line at the grocery store, just holding a basket filled with random crap, frozen lasagna, some fancy-smelling trash bags, nothing important. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen and saw her name, Kathleen. My fiancée. The woman I thought I'd spend my life with. I opened the message without thinking, figuring it was about dinner plans or something to do with the wedding guests. Instead, I got slammed with a sucker punch made of just 8 words. Wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer. That was all she wrote. No explanation. No emotion. Just a flat statement with one period at the end, like she was shutting down a service contract. Cold, impersonal, like she was tossing me out of her life with a single click. I stood there, stunned, not really sure how to process what had just happened. The cashier had to ask me twice if I was ready to pay. I went through the motions, paid for the groceries, drove home without turning on the radio, and just sat in my car for 15 minutes after pulling into the driveway. Didn't cry. Didn't yell. Just sat there in silence. Eventually, I typed out a reply, 4 words. As you wish. I knew exactly what that meant. It wasn't just the wedding that was over. It was her way of saying, don't contact me again. My lawyer will take it from here. I wasn't just being dumped, I was being erased. And the worst part? She thought she had the upper hand. But she overlooked one major thing, something critical. See, Kathleen and I had just started the process of applying for a joint mortgage. It was for a beautiful new townhome just outside of Seattle. She picked the place. She'd already planned the decor in her head. Told her friends it was basically hers. But the truth was, nothing had been finalized. No papers signed. And most importantly, we weren't married yet. Which meant I was still legally flying solo. So before I even hung up my coat that night, I opened up my laptop, logged into the mortgage portal, and backed out of the application. 3 clicks. That's all it took to pull the rug out from under her plans. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, kinda petty, right? Maybe. But after spending 2 years building a life with her, after turning down a solid job offer in Chicago just so we could stay near her folks, this wasn't about revenge. It was about self-respect. Still, I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Less than 2 days later, I was sitting on the couch eating that same frozen lasagna I bought when my phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. A minute later, I got a voicemail. Hello, this is Kathleen, attorney for Miss Kathleen. We urgently request a call back regarding your mortgage withdrawal, as this action may constitute breach of contract or financial interference. Please contact us immediately. I actually laughed. Urgently request? Now they were panicking. That cold, professional tone was starting to crack. I didn't call back. Just waited. And sure enough, the messages kept coming, calls, emails, one after another, each one sounding more desperate than the last. They clearly didn't see this coming. Kathleen, as usual, must have assumed I'd be devastated, maybe even begging to talk. But I wasn't. I was over it. The next day, a mutual friend of ours, Pamela, called me. Her voice had that awkward tone people get when they're trying not to pick sides. Hey, did you really back out of the house deal? Yep. Okay, because Kathleen is totally losing it. She already ordered furniture and told her parents they'd have a guest room. I almost said, not my problem, but I held back. I didn't want to sound cruel, even though I probably could have. Then Pamela hesitated and added. She said you're doing this to hurt her. That you're being vindictive. I couldn't help but laugh at that one. I'm not out to punish her, I said. I'm just done being the fool. The truth is, I had started to suspect something was off weeks before all this went down. There were warning signs. Late-night texts from names I didn't recognize. Suspicious work meetings that didn't add up. Little whispers that stopped the second I walked into the room. I noticed all of it, I just didn't want to face it. But now, with everything falling apart, it was like I was finally seeing her clearly. So instead of reacting or responding to her lawyer, I decided to take a step back. I stayed quiet. Let them make the next move. Let them worry. Let them stew. And in that silence, the truth started to come out. 2 days later, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there stood her dad, Mr. Kathleen. I hadn't seen him since that dinner a month ago, the one where he raised a glass and welcomed me into the family. This time, he just looked tired and a little ashamed. He skipped the small talk and went straight to the point. What's going on with the house? I crossed my arms and answered, I'm not buying a home with someone who breaks up with me over text and sends her lawyer to clean up the mess. Are you here on her behalf? He looked down, avoiding eye contact. No. I'm here because she won't tell us anything. One day she's saying the wedding's off, the next she's ranting about furniture and credit reports. I'm just trying to understand. For a second, I thought about unloading everything on him, what she'd done, what I suspected, but I held back. All I said was, "She ended things." I respected that. Now she can deal with what comes next. He nodded slowly, like a man who'd already guessed more than he wanted to admit. Then he muttered something like, "I told her this wasn't the way," and walked back to his car. I watched him leave, and for the first time in days, I felt calm. But the story wasn't finished. Not even close. Because what I didn't know then, what no one knew yet, was that Kathleen had been planning something behind the scenes. Something intentional. Something big. And I was about to find out exactly why she wanted that house so badly. The first real crack in the whole situation came from someone I hadn't heard from in ages, Kathleen's cousin, Henry. We were never exactly tight, but we'd knocked back a few limonades together at family events, bonded a bit over feeling like outsiders in her picture-perfect social bubble. Out of nowhere, he slid into my DMs. "Hey man. Sorry about everything. Didn't realize how messy it got till now. Just wanted to say you dodged a bullet." I stared at that message for a while, trying to figure out if he was just being polite or if he knew something I didn't. Eventually, I shot back. "Appreciate it. What do you mean though?" He didn't hesitate. Responded immediately. "I probably shouldn't say more. Just ask her about Jeremy." Jeremy. At first, it didn't even click. It's a common enough name. I'd met a couple guys named Jeremy at her work events or during those awful weekend wine tastings she used to drag me to. But none stood out. Still, something about the way Henry said it, tight-lipped, like he was trying not to get pulled into a mess, told me this wasn't just some guy. Jeremy had something to do with why she blew up the wedding. And I had a gut feeling I knew what kind of something that was. So I did a little digging. Pulled up her Instagram, even though most of her posts were private now. But I noticed something, her tagged photos were still public. One of them jumped out at me. It was from an engagement party she supposedly missed because she claimed she was too sick to go out. She wasn't in the photo, but Jeremy was. And his arm was wrapped around her waist like they'd been together for years. Too close. Too familiar. Way more than friends. There I was, sitting on the couch microwaving soup, picking out backsplash tiles for a house I thought we were going to share, and she was out there cozying up to some guy, lying to my face about the flu. That was the moment something in me shifted. The sadness started to fade, and what replaced it was focus. Clarity. I didn't just want out, I wanted out clean. No strings. No shared anything. I wanted to disappear from her blueprint completely. First thing I did was call the mortgage company again. Made sure my withdrawal stuck for good. I even sent them a copy of her breakup text for their files. The woman I spoke to on the phone told me off the record that her lawyer had already tried to get me re-added to the application. Twice. But it was too late. I was gone. Then I made a call I probably should have made months ago. I rang up Roger, my old college roommate and a real estate lawyer now working in Chicago. He had offered me a position at his firm last year. I turned it down back then to stay in Washington because Kathleen wanted to be near her family. I told him, I'm back on the market. He laughed and said, took you long enough. We scheduled a video call for Monday. And still, not a word from Kathleen. No apology, no explanation. She never did things directly. It was always through someone else, lawyers, mutual friends, passive pressure. But not anymore. I wasn't playing her game. At least, I thought I wasn't. Then Sunday morning rolled around and everything blew up again. I woke up to 32 notifications. Missed calls. Texts. Emails. But not from her. From my bank. Apparently, there was an attempt the night before to access the joint savings account we'd opened for the wedding. The same one I'd funded with 10 grand from my annual bonus. That money was meant for catering, venue deposits, rentals, all the big-ticket stuff. But the system flagged the transaction as suspicious. Someone tried to drain the entire account and move it into a private checking account in her name only. I called the bank immediately. They froze everything. While I was still on the line with them trying to figure out what the hell just happened, an email came in. Subject, urgent regarding wedding funds. It was from Kathleen, her lawyer. Mr. Pfizer, my client is concerned about the funds held in the joint savings account for your now canceled wedding. As she made several payments into this account, she believes she is entitled to reclaim a portion. That was a flat-out lie. She hadn't put a single dollar into that account. I kept records. Every cent came from me. She always kept her finances separate for flexibility, she said. Now that it was over, she wanted to clean me out and walk away like it was fair game. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Roger again. He asked, you got the receipts? I said yeah, every transfer, every deposit. He replied, then you're fine. But let me give you some advice. If she's pulling a stunt like this, she's not done yet. And he was right. That night, I got a voicemail from her. The first direct contact since that ice-cold breakup text. Her voice was shaky, trying to sound soft, regretful. Almost like she was forcing herself to sound broken. Hey, I didn't want things to turn out like this. I panicked, okay? Things got complicated and I didn't know how to tell you. Please don't think I meant to hurt you. I played it twice. Then I deleted it. No reply. I didn't owe her one. Here's the thing, once you show someone you're not afraid to walk away, they start losing control. And Kathleen? She thrived on control. She didn't know what to do when the script flipped. Monday came and I signed Roger's job offer. Remote to start with the option to relocate to Chicago down the line. Just like that, I was back in the driver's seat of my own life. But Tuesday? Tuesday is when the last thread snapped. Pamela called again. Her voice was strained like she'd been crying. You should know. Kathleen says she's pregnant. I went still. She's telling everyone it's yours. And just like that, my heart stopped. Then Pamela added, but Jeremy's been crashing at her place ever since you split. People are talking. My voice was barely a whisper. Did she say how far along? 8 weeks. Supposedly. I did the math. 8 weeks ago, she was doing that detox thing, wouldn't even let me come near her. Said she was resetting her body for the honeymoon. We've been intimate maybe 9 weeks back. Maybe. Barely. So yeah, there was a chance it was mine. A small one. But more likely? This was part of the plan. She was laying the groundwork. Trying to trap me. Tie me to her with something permanent. Maybe even file for support down the line. All while erasing me from her mortgage, her lawyer's radar, and her new life with Jeremy. And that's when I knew this wasn't heartbreak. It was war. And you know what the worst part was? I knew what she was about to pull. After Pamela's call, I didn't sleep much. I just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece everything together, how the timing lined up, what her actual motive was, and why she chose to end it over a text instead of looking me in the eye. Because let's be honest, it wasn't a breakup. It was a play. A setup. Kathleen didn't suddenly stop loving me, she just started planning her exit early and wanted to make sure she controlled the story before I even knew I was in one. Now she was saying she was pregnant. And claiming it was mine. Only it couldn't be. The math didn't work. We hadn't been together like that in weeks by then. She'd grown cold, distant, even patronizing toward the end. Said she was doing a pre-wedding cleanse. Purifying herself, whatever that meant. I figured it was just one of her quirks. I didn't question it. But now it all made sense. She'd been pulling away because she knew she'd messed up. Or maybe she'd already crossed a line she couldn't uncross. And Jeremy? He wasn't some mistake. He was why she ended things. The next morning, her lawyer fired off another email. This one had sharper edges. Given recent developments, my client is considering legal action for financial abandonment and emotional distress. She has also asked that I formally notify you of her pregnancy and your presumed parental responsibilities. That word, presumed, sent a chill down my spine. They were trying to box me in. Hit me fast. Get me flustered. Maybe even bait me into reacting out of anger so they could twist it into something they could use in court. But I didn't fall for it. I stayed calm. I called Roger and told him everything, what she said, what I suspected, what her lawyer was hinting at. His advice was simple, get ahead of it. Now. You need your own legal trail, he said, something that proves she's spinning this, not you. So I did just that. That same day, I hired a local attorney. Her name was Jeremy. She was sharp. No nonsense. Kind of icy, to be honest, but in a good way. She didn't sugarcoat anything, and that's exactly what I needed. The next morning, she sent a formal letter to Kathleen, Kathleen's lawyer. The message was clear, I denied paternity until an official DNA test proved otherwise. Until then, I wouldn't be offering financial support or playing any emotional role. And if anyone tried to access our joint accounts or paint me as abusive, we'd file a countersuit. She also demanded a full rundown of Kathleen's current assets, just in case Kathleen tried to argue I owed her anything for the house we never bought. We weren't playing defense anymore. Barely 2 hours after Jeremy's letter was delivered, my phone started buzzing. It was Kathleen calling me directly for the first time since she dropped that text. No voicemail, just call after call. 6 times in one afternoon. I didn't answer. Instead, Jeremy got a call from Kathleen that evening. Apparently, Kathleen was distressed and felt ambushed. Kathleen suggested we were taking a private matter and turning it into a public battle. Jeremy didn't flinch. She made it public, she told Kathleen. The moment she threatened legal action and tried to access funds, she opened this door. My clients simply walking through it. I wish I could say I didn't feel anything at that point. But the truth is, I felt a whole damn storm. Anger, hurt, frustration, and yeah, regret. Not because it ended, but because I ignored all the warning signs leading up to it. How she always kept her money separate. How she never wanted to talk about a prenup and laughed it off with, "Don't you trust me?" How she insisted on planning everything, every dinner, every weekend, every second of our lives. The red flags were there. I just didn't want to admit they meant something. And the worst part? Some small, stubborn part of me still wanted to believe maybe she was just scared. Maybe Jeremy was a mistake. Maybe she didn't know how to undo what she'd done. But real life doesn't care about maybes. Reality showed up 2 nights later in the form of a message from Jeremy himself. It was late, maybe 10 o'clock at night. I was on the couch watching TV when a Facebook message came through from a blank profile. No photo. Just a name, Jeremy. We should talk. I don't want to be part of whatever game she's playing. I sat there staring at it, my hands suddenly cold. Eventually, I typed back. Talk. He answered almost right away. She told me you two broke up months ago. Said the wedding was off and you were just helping her with the house out of guilt. My jaw clenched. We were engaged until the day she sent that text. Not a second sooner. He went silent for a bit, then dropped the rail bomb. She told me you hit her. Everything inside me froze. What? I replied. Yeah, she said she was scared of you. That you had anger issues. That you used to throw things when you got mad. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I'd never laid a hand on her. Never so much as slammed a door in her direction. The worst we had were tense talks, usually about how she'd book up our weekends without asking. But abuse? That was fiction. I asked him, do you believe that? He didn't reply for a while. Then finally. No, not anymore. The next morning, I called Jeremy and laid it all out. Every message. Every word. She immediately filed a protective legal brief, a kind of preemptive move in case Kathleen tried to falsely accuse me of abuse down the road. It was a way to get ahead of it legally before it turned into something ugly. But things were already getting ugly. The final nail came on Friday. I got an email from the mortgage lender, not a form notice. A personal apology. They said Kathleen had contacted them again, asking if they could push forward with the loan without me. But it got worse. She had submitted a falsified form claiming I had willingly removed myself from the deal and didn't expect any financial stake in return. She tried to fake paperwork, tried to erase me officially, but she wasn't going to get away with it. The bank flagged it right away, because I hadn't signed anything. She'd forged my name. I forwarded the email to Jeremy. 10 minutes passed with no reply, and then she finally called me. This is fraud, she said, her voice cool but firm. We can take this to the police. And we could have. But I told her not yet. I wasn't ready to go nuclear. Not unless I had to. Deep down though, I knew the truth, this wasn't over. Kathleen was coming apart at the seams. And desperate people don't go quietly. The next week was a blur. Every day brought some new chaos, a bogus legal threat, another backdoor attempt to access our accounts, some cryptic post on her Instagram. It was exhausting. But in a strange way, it was also satisfying. Watching her lose control of the narrative she tried so hard to manage, it was like finally seeing the strings snap on a puppet show I never signed up for. Then I got a call from Pamela. She sounded rattled. Her voice was low, like she didn't want anyone to hear her. You're not gonna believe this, she whispered. Kathleen, she's telling people she had a miscarriage. I felt my stomach hit the floor. What? I asked, louder than I meant to. She posted it last night. Now everyone's messaging her, saying how sorry they are. She's telling people she lost the baby right after you two broke up. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process it. Was she lying? Was it even true? I didn't know. But something told me this was another calculated move. A way to rewrite the story, make herself the wounded one. The betrayed. The one people would rally around. Sympathy, after all, is a powerful shield. I wasn't sure if she'd actually been pregnant or not, but I was sure of this: Kathleen was spiraling. And she was using every trick in the book to regain control of the story. Now she was using a miscarriage, real or not, as her exit strategy. The next contact came from Kathleen, her lawyer. This time, the tone had changed completely. Gone was the pushy, aggressive attitude. Instead, they came in soft. We realize this situation has gone further than anticipated. Kathleen's dealing with personal matters. We'd prefer not to escalate further. But Jeremy didn't buy it for a second. She reminded Kathleen that Kathleen had already attempted to commit mortgage fraud. She made it clear, if Kathleen kept pushing, this wouldn't stay civil. If your client keeps playing games, Jeremy said, we'll pursue criminal charges. We're not bluffing. For the first time in this whole nightmare, I felt something like justice. After everything she'd done, the lies, the manipulation, the threats, Kathleen was finally being cornered by reality. The masks were slipping. The games weren't working. And I wasn't running anymore. That Friday, the final push came from the bank. But it wasn't about the mortgage. They told me they'd reported Kathleen's fraudulent paperwork to the authorities. The fake document with my signature had crossed a legal line, and now there was an open investigation. It wasn't about hurt feelings anymore. This was criminal. I forwarded all of it to Jeremy. She wasted no time, set up a meeting with the prosecutor's office. Meanwhile, Kathleen's social media was turning into a spectacle. One day it was tearful selfies. The next, vague captions about betrayal. Rambling posts about how some people destroy everything good in their lives. Watching her unravel online felt surreal. This wasn't the woman I'd once planned to marry, this was someone I barely recognized. I stayed quiet. Didn't engage. Not publicly. Not privately. Because by now it wasn't about revenge or the house or even the lies. It was about the fact that Kathleen thought she could ruin me and walk away clean. But she was wrong. She'd underestimated the one thing I still had, my backbone. I didn't need to throw mud. I didn't need to match her chaos. All I had to do was stay grounded and let the truth do its job. Then, one afternoon, Wednesday, I think I got a call from her dad. His voice was different this time. Not cold. Not defensive. Just tired. Defeated. I owe you an apology, he said. I got it all wrong. I should have known something wasn't right. He sounded like a man who just woken up from a long sleep. Said Kathleen had been lying to everyone about the baby, the miscarriage, the timeline. He admitted she'd been sneaking around with Jeremy long before things fell apart. Even confessed that she'd borrowed money from her own parents to keep up the act. All I could think about was how hard I tried to earn that man's respect. How many times I bit my tongue, showed up when I didn't want to, played nice just to be seen as good enough for his daughter. And now he was telling me I'd been nothing more than another pawn in her game. I'm sorry, he said again. We'll fix this. But I didn't know what fix even meant anymore. Nothing could undo what she'd done. Nothing could give me back the time, the trust, or the life I'd spent building with her. What I could do, though, finally was let go. I blocked her number. Wiped her from my social media. Deleted every message, every photo, every trace. Even boxed up the few things she'd left at my place and dropped them at her parents' house. Quietly. Without drama. She tried to reach out a few more times after that. But by then, it didn't matter. The man I'd been when this started? He was gone. The life I built around her? Gone too. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the fool anymore. I felt free. And honestly, that was the hardest part of all. Coming to terms with the fact that no matter how deeply I loved her, no matter how real it felt at the time, the version of Kathleen I fell for never really existed. She was a story she told me. A role she played. And I was just one more character in her script. It took me a long time to accept that. It's been a year now since all of that came crashing down. Since the lies, the games, the threats, and the chaos. From what I hear, though I don't go looking, her life's still a wreck. A mess of half-truths and burned bridges. But I don't waste my time keeping up with her anymore. I don't need to. As for me, I've moved forward. I bought a new place, a home that's mine and mine alone. No shared documents. No tangled finances. Just a clean slate and a quiet key in my own front door. And for the first time in a long time, I can actually breathe. I feel free not just from her, but from the version of myself I used to be when I was with her. But I didn't walk away from it all empty-handed. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. Don't let someone else's manipulation define your life. I was naive. I let love blind me to the truth. I ignored every red flag because I wanted the fairy tale. I played the fool. But never again. I'm not that man anymore. And I won't be.